Today's word is coming from the Old Testament, 1 Samuel chapter 17. We've ministered on it many times before about David and Goliath. So it's 1 Samuel chapter 17. And we are going to look at different verses there, not the entire chapter. The message today is based upon a sermon the Lord gave me many years ago, several years ago. And I do not think it's strange. I don't count it strange because the Lord said to me at the beginning of this year, 2013, that this is a foundational year for the people of God. This would be a foundational year for me and for our church. So we see God is giving us a review, if you will, and taking us back, allowing us to rewind the tape so we can determine and hear from God as to what we need to do, what we need to know, and how do we need to, what it's going to take for us to get where the Lord is taking us. So this word is so awesome to me personally. And this has been a very, if you will, soul-searching week for me. And I was sharing with my son that especially on this past Friday, I could feel the presence of my mother so greatly. And she's been dead for 5 years, but I could feel her presence. And even I was in one of the stores and I just began to weep, and the people wanted to know what was wrong. And I said, nothing is wrong. But I could just hear my mother talk to me. I could feel her next to me. And then the Lord began to take me back, and I was looking at all the things that she went through, all the things she encountered during her lifetime, and how she loved the Lord so greatly. And how thankful she was and how pleased she was that I was a servant of the true and the living God. And I would remember how my mother was mistreated on so many occasions, and that just caused my heart to ache as I didn't try to not think about it. I just let the Spirit of God just flow. Mm-hmm. And how even some of her own children, some of her grandchildren, disrespected her and disregarded her. Didn't think too much of her. But yet she did her best for all of us. How she was rejected, deserted, and betrayed, lied on, persecuted, and prosecuted. But yet she loved. And she made a profound statement to me one day, and she said, daughter, we talked about everything. We were very close. And she said, know this today, that everybody who loves you ain't going to love you. Mm-hmm. And she said, that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Because I could not fathom how it is that you have people of God who are just on the wall for the Lord and for his people, yet they are persecuted and prosecuted. And that was before I really solidified my relationship with the Lord. And I looked at what Christ had to endure, what he had to suffer. And so I would console myself and say, you know, do you think that you're better than he is? And so, as I said, this has been a week of going back and looking at. And in so doing, the Lord took me back to sermons that I was on the computer and just an old floppy disks and just going and looking at them. And the Lord was ministering to me. And he said to me to bring this word today. Victory in the Valley. A sermon I preached many years ago. Victory in the valley. And I was just reminiscing on how awesome God is, how he just lays out an understanding of his word to us in so many ways. And even in Foundation in the Word this morning, we were looking in the dictionary and looking up the meaning of different words, and how in God's master plan, He is taking us back to foundational truths and having us to look at, where does this word come from? What does this word say? What does this word mean? And in getting the gospel to people throughout the world, He has commissioned His servants to translate the word from Hebrew, from Greek, that we don't have to be concerned about trying to understand. Okay, what does this word? We look in the concordance. Okay, we look in the Greek. We look in the Hebrew. What does this word? How do we have difficulty even pronouncing some of those words? But God is so amazing that He has allowed all those words to be translated into English, our native language, not just into English, but to different languages around the world, so that His word can go forth to His people. And that although the Greeks may have a word for jump over the moon that is different from what the Hebrew has, but we can have it in English and in Dutch and Portuguese and Greek and all those languages, and the people of God get an understanding, speaking to us in our own language. I just find that is so amazing, because He knew this would be foundational to us understanding and receiving the gospel, that we've got to be able to get this word in our own language. And we thank Him today. Thank you, God. Victory in the valley. During this season of the men's NCAA Final Four, it seems like many roads and even many airways lead to Atlanta. Basketball fans, some of us who not really too much basketball fans, but we just kind of get caught up in the moment, are glued to big screen TVs as we track the game and plays of our favorite teams. Many basketball fans are betting their hard-earned money on their favorite team because they believe their team will rack up the greatest points and will be the winner. Now, victory in a basketball game is determined by the team who has more points than their opponent. The team with the point advantage and their fans are celebrating even before the final buzzer goes off. Then there are times when many of the teams who are participating are losing. You can see, even me, I may not be an expert in basketball, but we can see that they are losing the game. And not only are they losing the game, but they look like they have lost the game. And the game's not even over yet. But they have lost written on their faces. And how do we know they believe they have lost? It's because they're looking real sad